I was born in a family of Sufis, which is the mystic part of Islam. And it was very common for me to see mystical thing in my grandparents and my family. I was not necessarily an awakened person. And the first spiritual practice that I started was more than 34 years ago, was meditation. And the way I started it was that I could not sleep. And my mother, after revolution in Iran, because she was very worried about her two daughters, me and my sister, she was really, really nervous and had lost her peace. And a friend sent her like information about meditation. So she had started meditation 10 years before I started. So when I was not able to sleep, my mother said, "Why don't you try meditation?" So that was the first time I started a form of spiritual practice, which helped in terms of calming me down, and but really didn't resolve the root of my insomnia, which was my childhood trauma. And I went through everything that Western medicine or allopathic medicine had to offer me. And then I went beyond it. I tried, all different modalities. And two modalities came in my life. And the one that really resulted in my spiritual awakening was Kundalini activation process. And that was 4 years ago. I didn't know anything about Kundalini, and when it showed up in my social media, I was so desperate to get a good night of sleep after 30 years of insomnia. I was willing to try anything. So I said, I'll try Kundalini activation process in short KAP, and I'm glad I did because it entirely transformed my life to the point that I have been off all medication, no therapy needed. For the first time in my life, I experienced true joy and something that I didn't know even existed called bliss, which is really difficult to describe. But the samadhi that, yogis go into mountains of India and they sit there for 10 years. I have experienced samadhi with cat. It's like, wow, how beautiful is that? So that's how my spiritual awakening began.
So, for anybody that doesn't understand Kundalini activation, could you walk us through the process?
Yes. So Kundalini is life force energy, and different cultures call it different things. Indians call it prana, Chinese call it chi, Christians call it Holy Spirit. My teacher, Wen and Wang, calls it God. It's a divine life force energy, something that is in all of us since we have been born. It has maintained us all these years, but it is not necessarily awakened or activated. So Kundalini activation process specifically is an ease-based process of activating Kundalini. What does it mean to be ease-based? It means that you as an individual don't need to do anything. It's about transmission of awakening and activation by a facilitator like me. And all you do is that you lay down on a yoga mat or your bed, and I play you a playlist for an hour. And for those who have done it enough, we can do 90 minutes, which is the maximum time. I play that playlist, and you close your eyes and you listen to music. That's all you do. All you do. And that's the major difference between CAP and other Kundalini modalities such as Kundalini breath, Kundalini yoga, because in all those other modalities, the person is in charge. They are making an effort. It's effort-based practice. They're making an effort to activate their Kundalini. And they often try to activate Kundalini in the root chakra and then bring it to crown, as opposed to CAP, that the direction is from crown to first, and after all the chakras are open, it becomes a wheel. It goes both ways. So why CAP is 100% safe is that the energy is in charge, not the person. Because we human beings have a tendency to want everything faster and more. And we may overdo it. And when you hear people saying, oh my Kundalini awakened, I went crazy, don't do it, it's because they have been in charge and they have overdone it. And for a small percentage of population who have spontaneous awakening, a person who has never had any spiritual practice doesn't even know what Kundalini means. In the middle of the night, they have Kundalini awakening and they think they have gotten crazy. What do? They go to the psychologist, to the doctor, and they say, yeah, you're crazy. Here, we take this pill, right? So that's the beauty of Kundalini activation process. Safe and effortless.
Oh, sounds pretty good.
Yes.
So once you've done this activation and you've seen that your sleep is improving, which I can very much agree with you. I know what it's like to not sleep through the night. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone.
Yes.
You're just broken when you're not able to sleep. So it's just so important to feel at ease and to be able to do that. Then you went off your meds. How has this newly found spirituality affected your life and everything in it?
Everything has changed. 4 years ago, if you met me, I would be a completely different person. I would be very depressed, exhausted, had a very negative view on life to the point that I wanted to unalive myself. I had planned. I was like, I cannot live like this. I don't want to live like this. Very anxious, PTSD, panic attacks. I was miserable. And now I'm the happiest I have ever been. Because I had so much fear, I wanted to be in control of my life, right? Like everything has to be planned, and if anything would change, I would get really, really nervous. And now I'm like in total surrender. Like, universe, do it. I trust you. Whatever, welcome. And most importantly, what has happened, which is really the gist of it, the bottom line is that we are energy, we are vibrations. And the universe only language is the language of vibration and frequency. The universe does not respond to your words, it does not respond to your thoughts, none of that. And since the movie Secret and the book came and everybody wants to manifest, and yeah, it's beautiful, create a vision board and write a gratitude letter. But if you vibrationally, you're not aligned with what you're asking for or what you're wishing for, you'll never get it. You can have 200 vision boards and 300 gratitude. The universe does not respond to your letter or your vision board. It responds to your level of vibration. And in spiritual awakening, what it does, it raises your vibrations. And when your vibrations are raised, everything changed. Because even physically, health is a very high vibration state. Disease is a very low vibration state. So spontaneous healing happened with the spiritual awakening because your level of vibration is up here. Emotionally, sadness, fear, anger, they're very low vibration emotions. Joy, bliss, forgiveness, gratitude, very high vibration. So you change emotionally, you change physically. Einstein said there are two types of people. They either look at the universe as their friend or they look at that universe as their enemy. I used to look at the universe as my enemy, and I was always like talking. It's like, why are you doing this to me? And it's not the universe doing that to me. I was doing it to myself. And I had childhood trauma and stuff like that. But I consider universe absolute my best friend.
So tell me from the perspective of your career, because I know that you're an oncologist, that's your profession. So how has that changed the way you saw patients and treated them after you've had this awakening? And you probably realized, I think, some things about health that
Yes.
you probably weren't taught in medical school.
Exactly. So doctors are not bad. Doctors are misinformed. And I still believe in allopathic medicine for acute phases of diseases. When you have a stroke, you don't want to sit, meditate. You want to go to emergency room and take care of the stroke because you have only window of 5 hours to take care of it. But unfortunately, Western medicine, allopathic medicine, really doesn't have good answers for chronic serious illnesses. They either put you on a steroid or some kind of medication, and we don't know what caused it, and we don't know what's going to happen to you. Good luck, right? But there is so much data, and I refer your viewers to two of Dr. Gabor Mate's books. One is When the Body Says No, and the other one is called The Myth of Normal. And he lists so many references on this data that has been suppressed. They're not taught in medical schools because it doesn't make money for pharmaceutical companies, right? And it clearly, there is clear correlation and relationship between childhood traumas and all kind of diseases. And that is something that you never hear. Have you ever heard, no matter what specialist you go to, they ask you, did you have childhood trauma? No, never. If you go to a psychiatrist, they may ask, but even in response to that, what do? They put you on medication. They are not addressing it. So what I learned through my own suffering, that the cause of my insomnia was my childhood trauma. And no matter how much antidepressants and all kind of medication, even transcranial magnetic stimulation, ayahuasca, no matter what they did, it was not addressing my childhood trauma. I needed to get to the bottom of it. And through learning about Make Anything Possible or MAP, in 6 sessions, it treated my childhood trauma. I was in therapy for 30 years. 6 sessions. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now. I mean, I had to become a coach. I'm like, what? Nobody ever told. And that showed up in my social media as well. Thank God for social media. I'm like, gosh, I had never heard of this. And now I have cancer patients that I treat with. I'm not telling them don't get surgery or radiation or chemo. No. Go get that for acute phase. But let's get to the bottom of why did you get cancer?
So, why do many of us get cancer? What happens in the body for us to get cancer?
It's a multifactorial issue. In Traditionally, we have been taught that only people who have genetic mutation get cancer. It's genetics. It's not. Only 10% of cancers are because of a mutation in a gene. In United States today, 1 out of 3 people get cancer in their lifetime, and we are approaching 1 in 2. That is 50%. That is, you look at 10 people, 5 of them are going to get cancer. 5 of 10 people do not have genetic mutation. What it is, it's epigenetics. And epigenetics depends on your nutrition, on what chemicals you put in your body, whether you're drinking or smoking, or it's in your food, or it's in your air, it's your childhood traumas. It's so many different factors. However, it empowers you because you can change these things. You can change your nutrition, your lifestyle, stop putting chemicals in your body, stop putting sugar in your body, and you can do something about it, as opposed to genetics that, okay, I mean, that's my gene, there's nothing I can do.
So, walk me through how trauma and childhood trauma could be linked to the appearance of a certain type of cancer.
It's amazing. If you look at, if you read Dr. Gabor Mate's When the Body Says No, there's not only a type of personality, he calls it type C, that predisposes people to getting cancer. For every type of cancer, there's different characteristics in those people. For example, Men with prostate cancer, they have suppressed anger towards their mothers. It's very specific, right? Very specific. So when you do trauma work, you work with them on their suppressed anger towards their mother. In general, people we call nice, they get cancer. And we even say, that's not fair. Nice people are getting cancer. Yeah, nice people are getting cancer because they cannot say no. They cannot say no. They're people pleasers. And where does it come from? From our childhood. We did not feel loved. We felt that we needed to earn love. And how do we earn love? By pleasing people. And pleasing people requires saying yes all the time, ignoring your own well being, and just constantly giving, giving, giving. So the reason Dr. Gabor Mate's book is called When the Body Says No is that when I cannot say no, one day my body is going to say no. It's like, no, you cannot do this to me anymore. And that is where we get sick.
I love that. But exactly the way you've said it, very specifically for men with prostate cancer having repressed anger towards their mothers, I can imagine if somebody comes to see you and say it's a 60-year-old man. I mean, they've made peace with those resentments. They might not even know they have them, right?
Exactly.
So most times you would say that and it'd be like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. There's no
Yes.
way I have any. How do you then uncover and bring those feelings to the surface? And then my second question would be, if those feelings bubble up, does that solve them, or do we need to do something else to clean through them so that we've resolved that trauma?
That's the beauty of MAP, Make Anything Possible. It's a completely subconscious process. You don't need to know anything. It's not talk therapy. And you can do it in a group because nobody has to talk. Nobody has to, like, for 30 years, every time I changed a therapist, I had 10 years of sexual abuse as a child. I had to go through these stories over, and it was re-traumatized. With MAP, you don't need. What I give you just an example of how MAP works. So I would say, okay, MAP can neutralize negative emotions, but also it can replace them with positive ones. So say, okay, let's work today in our session. What is bothering you today? And, person might say, I had a fight with my wife, whatever, right? Something like that. Okay, so what number do you give to the degree of your discomfort? Oh, it's 8 out of 10. Okay, let's work on. What I do as a coach, I communicate with their superconscious, which is subconscious, but it's their higher self. Higher self knows everything. Higher self can treat everything. I'm not treating them, their superconscious is treating them. But with muscle checking, getting yes and no, I communicate with their superconscious. And in a matter of minutes, literally minutes, that 8 out of 10 drops to, I don't know, 4 out of 10, then goes to 2 out of 10, then becomes 0. Just fascinating. So I have not forgotten memories of my sexual abuse. But when I talk about it, I can tell you the story completely neutral, which is very different from 30 years ago when I started therapy. Then I was talking about those stories. I still didn't have any emotion. But the reason I didn't have emotion because all emotions were suppressed. And through therapy, all these emotions came up, which caused me to become so depressed and not be able to sleep. But MAP doesn't do that because you don't have to experience them. You might experience a little bit of them, but it's not it's so fast. It's so effective. It's unbelievable. So that was the answer to your first question. I'm sorry, can you repeat your second question? I forgot.
So I think you've answered both.
Mm.
Because it was, if we bring those feelings to the surface,
Mm-hmm,
does
mm-hmm.
this
Uh-huh.
also sort them out? And I think the answer is a bit yes, right? Because it takes the emotion out of it. And that's what we see with a lot of trauma. And I know in my circle of friends and everybody that I meet, when I see an intense emotional reaction when they talk about a certain trauma, it's very much part of their identity. So it means whenever they talk about it, they're reliving part of it. It's
Absolutely.
being back in that moment. And that's not healthy, because if anything, it solidifies to your body almost the fact that you're going through the same thing that you went through.
Exactly.
Which is dangerous.
So the analogy I use is that a child, they may touch the stove and they learn this is hot, I'm never gonna touch this, right? Those very highly negative emotions are just like that hot stove. And the reason we suppress them and the reason we don't want to feel them is because they're extremely painful, right? And in other modalities, they tell you, oh, you have to feel the feeling for the feeling to be released. How am I going to feel the feeling that feels 10 out of 10, right? So when MAP brings that temperature down, it brings it from 10 to 5, then I can feel it without, really getting out of control. And so the person might feel a little bit of it for a few minutes, but it's not a process that you have to feel this for months or years before they leave the system. That's the difference.
So for anybody that has been diagnosed with cancer, there are some classic treatments that are recommended depending on the type of cancer, the stage of cancer as well. Is there anything complementary to that we can do to help our treatment? And how do you work with clients on this?
My work with clients is multifaceted because I not only want to know about their childhood traumas and work with MAP, help them. I also recommend CAF because I want to raise their frequency. Also want to change the way of living. What are you eating? Let's talk about your nutrition. What is your lifestyle? Are you eating sugar? What is going on in your environment? And we have to explore all of that. The beauty of CAP is this, that once it raises your frequency, you automatically don't want things that are bad for you. For example, I was an eat meter. I was on keto diet for at least 2 decades. All I ate was meat. And there are benefits to keto diet. And I was thinking then that, keto diet is really good. I should be on keto diet. When I had a spiritual awakening, I became vegetarian first, vegan next, and as of January of this year, I'm raw vegan. I don't eat anything but raw vegetables and fruit. And this was not a process that I said, okay, let's do this. One day, I am reconnected with my body, and your bodies tell you. So when you raise your vibration, addictions go away. CAP even can release traumas. Your nutrition changes, anything. A job you hate, you have hated that job for 20 years, and because of your fear of financial insecurity, you tolerate. Gosh, your vibration is high. Next day, people are resigning. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Bad relationships, which are attraction to your childhood trauma, right? A pathological attraction, they fall off. So many of these things happen automatically when CAP raises somebody's vibration. But I also, at a conscious level, I ask them and I talk to it and, okay, let's do this, let's do that.
So you've mentioned a few things like, lifestyle, what we eat, probably how we move, if we move or not.
Yeah.
I can imagine also, the stress levels we're under, maybe our environment, what we have in our home. So are there some general advice that you could give to anybody that would be looking to improve their body's response to the treatment?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, when somebody is during treatment, we don't want to make major changes in their lifestyle. So, okay, let's go through your treatment and then we get to it. But number one, sugar. Gosh, sugar is worse than heroin. I don't remember when was the last time I had sugar. I think the last time I had sugar was in 2000 or something like that. So 24 years ago. Refined food. You want to have, you want to eat food that is closest to its original form, right? So when I eat apple raw, its original form, right? As opposed to, I don't know, whatever I make with apple pie or whatever, cook it and destroy all the nutrition in it and all of that. And how was that apple grown? Is it chemicals? Is it organic? Really, really, we don't know what we are putting in our bodies. The water, so important what water we drink, right? So much chemicals in addition to chlorine in our water. So very important because the majority of our body is made of water. We need to drink good water. And then what are the other chemicals? Electromagnetic field. Everybody has a cell phone now. How are you dealing with that? And the stress, of course, stress. The stress changes your entire biochemistry and it causes inflammation. So does sugar. So does refined food. So does EMF. When you are in an inflamed state of body, that is where all the bad things happen.
Sounds, a bit daunting, because if we look at the world around us, you go into a grocery store, what you see is, first of all, you see sugary things. I mean, it baffles me, and I have to say, I would be a big fan of sugar. I love it. I know that I shouldn't have it. I do love it, but when you think of something like a muffin being considered a breakfast food, it spikes. If you know anything about the glycemic index, it just spikes your blood sugar so high, and then it will crash. And not to mention, if you have something like insulin resistance or if you have diabetes, that's probably the worst thing you could do, because your glycemic response is going to be off the charts. But if we look at the world around us, I mean, you see somebody on the train eating a muffin at breakfast, that's not crazy. It's not like a pot of rice that you would look at funny at the person. And then again, we're used to having our phones all the time. We're used to always being connected to our devices. Even in the gyms, I noticed they have these screens so you can watch a movie while you exercise. And it feels like our life is getting easier because of the devices, because of, we can buy packaged food or we can order takeout. But we're not just paying with money for those things, we're paying with our health and well-being. And
Absolutely.
that cost doesn't seem to be obvious to everybody just yet.
Yeah, one of the most common statements that comes up, and this morning a friend of mine sent it to me again, that 100 years ago, there were like hundreds of foods that we did not have, right? And there were 100 diseases we didn't have. They're very related. The very important thing is that we have separated from nature. We are biologically animals. That's what we are, right? And we have been separated from nature. I was talking to a patient of mine and I was like, animals, cats, whatever, they know when something is wrong with them. Go and eat whatever herb they need to eat. They heal themselves. We human beings have that capability, but we are so disconnected from nature, so disconnected from our body, so disconnected from our intuition, which is our higher authentic self. We don't know. We are always looking up to somebody else, and that is usually the doctor, to tell me what to do, right? And we don't ground. Grounding is so important. People have healed their diseases just by grounding. And that's as simple as walking on it barefoot on grass and just being in the nature. And that is like so very important that we don't. I mean, look at our children. They don't play outside. They're sitting at the computer and their cell phone all day. Now, a academic center such as Massachusetts General Hospital has developed a new department for kids to deal with their illnesses, digital illnesses. That is how sick our children are. And diabetes, yes. I mean, when you constantly eat high glycemic food and your insulin is all the time spiking, you get what is called metabolic syndrome. And that metabolic syndrome includes diabetes, high blood pressure, hyperglycemia. Look at the rate of obesity in the United States. You barely can find a food that doesn't have corn syrup and sugar in it. You look at anything, it's like ingredients, like there are 50 ingredients and 49 of them are chemicals. Who owns food industry in the United States? Tobacco companies. As you smoke, and there's 200 plus chemicals in a cigarette to keep you hooked, those very chemicals are now in our food.
It almost feels like fighting an uphill battle, right? Because it feels like everything is made to create addiction and to help us bind more to that food. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the ad campaigns, I mean, the other day I was looking at an advertisement for cigarettes that was maybe from the 70s.
Uh-huh.
And you know, it was almost, the slogan was about women's empowerment. So you should smoke as a woman because that empowers you to be the same as a man.
Yes.
And I think nowadays we would think that's ridiculous if we saw it in today's newspaper. But today we do see ads for restaurants. We see them for different types of foods. You know, this is what's cool. Have a granola bar if you're in a hurry.
Yes.
But nobody advertises for have a banana if you're in a hurry. You
and
know,
they
same
mislabel
benefit.
it. They mislabel those as organic, whole. It's not. It's just a facade. It's something that food industries have come up. Oh, people have become health conscious. Okay, we'll change the label. We put something false on it. Oh, this is really holistic and whole. But you read the ingredients. Even as a raw vegan, I avoid high glycemic fruits and vegetables. I don't eat honey. And look how many people say, oh, honey is the replacement for sugar. Guava is, no, they are very high glycemic. I use monk fruit. I have a sweet tooth. And monk fruit, you put a drop of it, is just really, really sweet. It doesn't have high glycemic index. So, you know, again, like dried fruit, right? You can have a little box of raisins. That's almost like 5 or 6 grape, bunches put in a little box. And they say, oh, it's like a really tiny snack, but you're putting so much sugar in your body. It's a campaign of misinformation because they're making so much money.
It's nothing short of amazing. Yeah, how much it seems like there's so much work that we would have to do to find out what good food is and how we should take care of ourselves, because the easiest options and the most convenient ones are not necessarily what's best for us. But I wanted to also talk to you about meat, and I know that this is a very controversial topic, but I know that you don't eat meat. And I also know that meat works on the mTOR pathway, which sort of suppresses longevity in the long term. Now, is there a connection between meat and cancer?
Yes. So the connection is between animal fat and cancer. And there are many, many cancers that are directly related to consumption of animal fat, such as colon cancer, right? So an observation I have made is that my patients with cancer, the first thing they would lose the taste for it is red meat. Their body's like, no, no red meat. It's amazing. It's just they don't make any effort. And I live in Texas. This is a state of steaks and cows and cow meat, right? They would stop. I don't even need to tell them. It's like, I don't like red meat anymore. This is the issue. If we can reconnect to our body, I tell you how I became vegetarian. I'm from Iran. We love our kebabs, all lamb and greasy and all of that. I'm like, I can never become vegetarian. I love to become vegetarian, but I can't. I decided to juice for 4 weeks. This was 2014, right? So I juiced for 4 weeks and I loved it so much. I had so much more energy. I'm like, I'm going to extend it for another 4 weeks. I did 8 weeks of juice. All I juice at home and it was lovely, right? Then I had guests, and you can't drink juice when you're offering like rice and kebab and all of that too. But okay, so I have to eat. The very first bite of meat I put in my mouth, I was nauseous, extremely fatigued, very sleepy. I mean, my entire energy shifted. And that was the last bite of meat I ever had in my mouth because my body had awakened in those 8 weeks of juicing. And now my body was talking to me. When we are so intoxicated by what we're eating, we have lost connection with our body. We don't hear the body. We just see the food and crave it. It's addiction and we go for it. So that's how I became vegetarian. And then 4 years later, I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to become vegan and stop alcohol, which is the drug of choice after smoking for suppressing your emotions, your traumas. That's how people self medicate to deal with their traumas. So bad for you, so bad for you, but so socially acceptable that if you go to a party or even a restaurant, it's like, I don't want to drink. Everybody's forcing you to drink. Just one glass. Oh, come on, drink a glass of wine. The red wine is good for you. No, I'm not drinking alcohol. Stop it. So then I stopped alcohol, stopped gluten, which is such an inflammatory agent. And then January of this year, my body was like, okay, time to move on to raw vegan. So fasting has many forms. Intermittent fasting is very good, but fasting for a rather longer period of time, whatever long means for you, more than a day perhaps. Like I water fast. Right now, water fasting, and my goal this time is 2.5 weeks. I have done 2 weeks of water fast. When you do water fasting, gosh, your body speaks to you. You observe your patterns of eating. It's like, am I hungry? I'm eating, or am I swallowing my sadness and stress, or am I eating because it's time to eat? It's such a beautiful fasting, wakes your body up. And that fasting doesn't need to be water fasting, it could be juicing. It could be just one day a week I'm not eating meat. It just start with small steps. It could be intermittent fasting, which is great, right? You just miss one meal, but it awakens your body and reconnects you to your body, and you don't need any outside force to tell you what you need to eat. Your body tells you what to eat and what not to eat.
Does fasting also have benefits for cancer?
Absolutely. We have this mechanism in our body called autophagy, which basically our own body eats the bad cells, and that bad cells includes cancer cells. When you fast, because your body is not busy digesting all the food you're putting in your stomach, it would be eating the bad stuff, the cancer cells, all bad stuff, the fat, whatever. Your body is repairing when you're fasting, and that absolutely has a preventive measure on getting cancer.
I love that because I'm a big fan of fasting.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it. I think I haven't done days on end water fasting. To be honest, the one thing you could never take away from me is my coffee. I
Mm-hmm.
can have it black. I don't need anything more than that. But
Mm-hmm.
if you take that away from me, then I become a not nice person. And that's the one thing, because I've been on diets my whole life. So I've always said I can give up almost anything. I've been vegetarian, I've been vegan, I've been almost anything, I've done it. But the one thing you can never take from me is my coffee. But I have done fasts of 48 hours. And to be honest, I think the mental clarity that you feel, and you feel so much more connected to your body. And then I feel when you eat afterwards, when you taste something that's junk, like a
Mm-hmm.
chip or I don't know, a muffin, because mentioned that earlier, I feel like you don't enjoy it anymore. Like almost like your taste buds have reset,
Exactly.
and you taste it differently as you would have before. So say you have muffins every day, they taste good
Exactly.
because you're accustomed to the taste. But once your taste buds reset, it just kicks very differently and you don't
Yeah.
enjoy it anymore.
Yes.
I find that I crave healthy food. I crave
Yes.
salads.
Yes.
I crave fresh
Mm-hmm.
fruit and vegetables, and that's what I think fasting is so important, because I don't think we were meant to live in a world where food is available 24/7.
Yes, exactly. And every religion you look at, they have one form of fast. It's universal. They're not all the same, but they have some form of fasting. And I give you an example of how your body talks to you. You just mentioned craving. I did 2 weeks of fasting, and I was planning to do it for 3 weeks, but I was traveling for my CAP training, and I was like, I couldn't even move my suitcase. I'm like, it's time to break, but I didn't have time to go, to eat something. I went to the airport, and then I'm like, I wasn't prepared. How am I gonna restart eating after 2 weeks of water fasting? So I put in my Facebook for my friends, how should I break my fast? I don't know what to eat now. And then I heard the announcement that my flight was canceled, not canceled, delayed for an hour and a half or something. So I didn't check the responses. But all of a sudden, after I posted that question, I started craving pickles. Like a pregnant woman, I wanted pickles, just like you want coffee, right? But I had time for an hour. I'm like, how do I find pickles in the airport? So I was going from terminal to terminal until I finally found pickles. So I came back, sat at my gate, and as I'm eating pickles, I looked at the Facebook responses. Responses: eat fermented food. My body responded to that question way before anybody else responded. Now, what I want to say is that don't force yourself into anything. I have a friend who is a CAP facilitator, and because our teacher, when you ask him, tell us what we can do to raise our energy, he says there's only one thing you can do, and that is having raw vegan food. That's my only recommendation. So she wanted to force herself to become raw vegan. And she knew I was raw vegan. So after a week or so, she was contacting me, like, how did you do this? This is torture. I can't. I'm like, don't do it. Your body is not ready. Just because my body was ready doesn't mean your body is ready. Start with small steps. Just one day a week, have raw vegan food. And by definition, raw vegan means anywhere between 50 to 100% of your food should be raw vegan. You don't need to jump into 100% raw vegan like me. You can start with 50%. Let have 50% of your food be raw vegan. But that connection to the body is so amazing. And muscle checking. I think everybody needs to learn muscle checking. Now parents are teaching their children how to muscle check because we have answer to everything in our body. You can stand in front of whatever you want to buy. It could be a supplement, it could be food, and ask yourself, is this good for me or not? If your body leans forward, that's a yes. Your body leans backwards, it's a no. It's as simple as that. You can do that when you grocery shop.
Well, I'll try that, but I'm very afraid of what it will say.
Yeah, you need to listen.
Yeah, that's the bad part. Once you ask, then you actually have to take the advice. So what about dairy? Because dairy is quite controversial, and I can imagine, I'm not saying dairy as in ice cream, which is also loaded with a ton of sugar, or butter, which in copious amounts, or if you eat out, is just, it cannot be good for you. But what about, we have the Greek yogurt, we have these healthy, now there's a whole trend on social media with cottage cheese. What do you think about healthier types of dairy?
Very against dairy. It all starts with milk, right? What is milk? Milk is nutrition for a baby, not for an adult, right? So for the entire life, they're telling us drink milk or products that are made out of milk, which is for a baby cow. It's a calf, right? Why am I eating what is good for a baby cow, a calf, when I'm like 50 years old? It's very inflammatory. I don't think it's a good thing for you at all. And I'm saying, as somebody who loves cheese, I can just live on cheese, but no, it's not good for you. I don't care if it's cottage, I don't care if it's organic, I don't care if it doesn't have any antibiotic in it, which majority of them do. Look what we are doing to cows. Look what we are, how cruel we are to these animals, to by injecting hormones so they can produce more milk, so we can make all kind of cheeses. Gosh, the energy of that suffering is that in that food. I don't like dairies at all. I love eating them, but no, it's not good for you.
Is there a link to cancer? Because I have read some research that suggests it would.
Animal fat and inflammation. Animal fat and inflammation. And then you say, okay, drink skim milk. We got all, yeah, you have processed that thing that is not even milk anymore. And then I drink it because it's skimmed. No, I mean, they just want to sell you this stuff. Not good for you.
Do you have milk in your coffee?
I don't even drink coffee.
Oh, you don't drink coffee also. Would there be any type of milk that you would recommend?
I have a device at home, Norfolk, if you have heard the name, that juices and makes you milk out of nuts and all of that. I make my own nut milk because the nut milk you buy at store really doesn't have a lot of nut milk in it. There's maybe this much of nut milk, the rest is all the things they have added to it. So yeah, I make my own nut milk.
So, for anybody listening that either has been diagnosed with cancer, which is a serious disease, or is worried that they might get cancer because the statistics are so against us at this point, if we've given a lot of information, and I think you've given a lot of sound advice for what they should be considering in their lifestyle. But if you were to reduce all of that to maybe 5 actionable steps that when I leave here today I can start implementing, what would those 5 steps be?
No sugar, no animal fat, deal with your childhood traumas, ground, and do something that raises your vibration. That could be doing something that you love to do, you're excited about it, or it could be cat. Do something to raise your vibration.
Amazing. I think that's so good advice, and to be honest, it feels like it's great advice for almost any kind of chronic disease that we would be fighting, and not just cancer.
Absolutely. This multiple sclerosis, ALS, I mean diseases we never knew. These are all because of the way we are living, and it's multifaceted, as you see. Stress and chemicals and all kind of stuff. Yes. When you do that, you are making progress towards healing everything and becoming a physically, emotionally, mentally healthier person, a spiritually healthier person. And the worst thing medicine has done, it has separated these things. Even now, I separated them, right? I said, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. We are just one unit. These are all one. when you fix one of them, all of them get better. You do something physical that is really good, you get emotional even. It's one. And the problem in with the doctor is that if you want to talk about emotion or mental issue, you just have to go to a psychiatrist, your family practitioner, or they may give you a pill for antidepressant. But all they do deal with your body. They're just looking at, okay, we're just taking care of body. Spiritual, they don't even talk about it. They don't even, they call it woo, right? So we need to understand that these are all one. We are just one unit. And when we raise our vibration, we get healthier in all of these aspects.
That's so true. Dr. Noushin, thank you so much for being here with us today and for sharing your wisdom with us. For
Thank you.
anybody that is looking to connect with you or has more questions, how can they find you?
They can go to my website, is H as in Henry, 2 cc.com, which stands, I'm sorry, H2HCC.com, which stands for Heart to Heart Cancer Consultants. And when they go there, all of my social media is there, all information about MAP, all information about CAP, all information about my cancer consultant.